It is Taco Tuesday here on Inside the Game. I do not have my taco. I do have a nice warm cup of Java, though. And I am Jonathan Turner alongside Mr. Nathan Wangler. It is Tuesday. It is episode 59. And we are excited to have you wherever you're watching, near and far. And it's going to be a good show here this morning. First off, we're live on Roku, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, the usual places that you can find us. But we're going to have a guest joining us here in a few moments, and we'll talk about that. But Nathan, I was driving home yesterday from the studio, and it started to snow yesterday. Now it is Michigan, so we know that in every given week, or every given day, we can go from beautiful, sunny and 70 to shitty and snowy in the matter of hours. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
They say we have 3 seasons here in Michigan. It's spring, winter, and it's fall, winter, and then I think it's the orange cone season. That's how they put it there, right? So, but so it's snowing on my way home yesterday. It's 37 degrees outside right now. It's April. It's April the 8th. We have surpassed the first day of spring. That was back a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. I came from sunny San Diego, which was 70 degrees most of the time that I was there. I took the wife out on the date last night. We went out on a date. It was nice. She actually said to me, I was getting on the plane to go to San Diego, and she sends me like this. I've got a. I wish I could put it up on the screen. Maybe I can. I got to make sure there's nothing inappropriate in the text before I do that, though, because I haven't really gone back and looked at it. But with that being said, she sent me this text message before I left, and I want to go over this with you because I think this is very interesting. You are in a relationship, so I believe you're still in a relationship. I don't want to say maybe.
Who knows?
Put the cat out of the bag.
It's a day-to-day thing.
It's a day-to-day thing. Okay. Well, marriage is the same way, by the way. It's a day-to-day thing. I just want to find this. She sent me this text message, and it was very interesting. Here we go. Find it. Here we go. It was like a checklist. All right. So I'm still looking for it. I don't know where it went. It's gone. I'm still here. There it is. Okay, found it. So it was like 7 or 8 things on this checklist. Okay, okay. So here's what it was. Please don't forget to give me more money. That was the first one on the checklist. Okay, and this was related to work because she didn't have a company credit card, so I had to give her money for that to help make sure the staff was being well fed. Because we will feed you when you come to our studio. It's like our thing. 2, take pictures or it didn't happen. That was number 2. Don't forget, I love you. Okay, that's good.
It's a good
4,
reminder. Yeah.
Be good. Jesus is always watching. That was number 4 on the list. I don't know why that wasn't number 1, to be fair. I'm just saying. Anyways, so 5, send me eye doctor's phone number, please. I have not done that, by the way. So 6, I love that I get to put your things away. Means I have you in my life, which means she basically is calling me a slob in a very nice way. Appreciate that too. Big bed will be lonely for a few days. That made me happy. Because, let's plan a date night when you get back. Tell Jason I say hi. That was my friend that I went with. And then last one was don't eat too many carbs. So,
all important.
So that was my checklist as I was hopping on the plane. And I was able to knock off one of those checklist things last night, date night, on a Monday night. Go to J. Alexander's last night. Okay. I've been to J. Alexander's many times in my life. It's okay. I'm not like, it's not one of those restaurants like, whoo, I'm so excited about J. Alexander's.
Right.
We're sitting there at dinner, and we're done. It's 8:30 at night on a Monday. She's like, "So what are we doing next?" I go, "Well, what? It's Monday. What next? There's dinner. I mean, what do you? We're not gonna go anywhere after this." I go, "Well, where do you? Where are we gonna go? I mean, do you want to watch a movie? No, I want to do something funner than that." I go, "It's Monday. There's no fun on Monday nights. I mean, fun Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe Thursday night." But I go, where, it's 37 degrees outside. What want to go putt putt? Want to go want to go putt putt? She's like, no, I go, do you want to go to Detroit? We can go downtown Detroit. I mean, there, you walk through the streets with 37 degrees outside, and so this doesn't seem like fun. I go, no, but it's Monday night. I mean, we could walk around the mall, but it's closed. Because malls now close at 8:00. So I'm like, what? I'm like, what? I mean, fun. So we're like, let's go to Walmart. Let's go to Walmart.
Oh yeah, Walmart's a good pull. Yeah,
Walmart.
Absolutely.
So I don't mind doing that. Our dates over the last 10 years have always kind of been the same in this way, right? Well, unless again, you think about some of the things that we can do, but literally dinner, and we find ourselves shopping as moms and as husband and wife. We're out shopping, and that's our date night. Shopping and eating. That's it. I'm okay with that. I don't hate shopping. I mean, I'm not a big fan of shopping per se, but I get to spend the time walking around the store with the wifey, and maybe we'll find something. I mean, we bought shower curtains last night. As I'm tired, and maybe you can attest to this, I am tired of changing. So this happens every time we buy the shower liner, right? And then it gets dirty, and we take it off, but we don't have another one in the house. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm tired of this. I bought 7 of them last night, those shower liners. I'm like, no way. When she gets this urge to say it's time to take that shower liner off, you whatever. You just, I'm like, now we have 7.
Yeah.
Now I'm not going to go shower liner, whatever, without a shower liner for a couple of days because she decided to pull it off at 10:00 at night on a Tuesday. She actually decided. I get home on Sunday. The shower curtain, she's like, just so you know, John, we need to get a new shower curtain. I go, oh, okay, cool. We'll pick one up whenever. And I get in to go take the shower. I walk into the bathroom. Getting undressed and getting ready to get in the shower. And there's no curtain. I'm like, there's nothing. There's nothing preventing the water from going out of the shower onto the floor. It's just this. I'm like, this is weird. I go, I can't take a shower like this. I need something. I need a liner. I need a curtain. It was very awkward. But anyways, that is story. It is Tuesday. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I have one of those Claflin tubs. Actually, 2 of them in my house. Apparently, they're like wealthy people like them. People with a good style sense like these Claflin tubs are like the ones that actually like tubs. Like you would take like a bath in these, but apparently they were repurposed to be showers as well because of how old my house is. I hate these things. I don't know what it is about high fashion and typically things that are high fashion just suck. Claflin tubs is one of them. Just absolutely despise it. So can't tell you how many times I've nearly taken a header out of the bathtub in the middle of the shower. So no, I'm right there with you. And I'm not really big into baths, to be completely honest with you. So it's kind of a trip anytime I try to go in there and do that. But yeah, no, for some reason I didn't picture mall and shopping or Walmart as buying all the things that you need in that situation. I thought maybe you just walk around and window shop and create some havoc. That sounds like a fun nightly activity, but at least you guys did it together. So now you got 7 of them. You can never go wrong. You'll never have that issue again.
It is. It's true. I'll never have that issue again. Here's what I'm gonna do. I want to bring on our guest and something. So a few months ago, we were more like 3 or 4 months ago, we were starting this process of onboarding a bunch of people, right? Putting out there that we were interviewing for play-by-play, for camera operators, producers, you name it, right? And Bianca, there's a point where we were scheduling interviews for me, and I'm sitting there going, Bianca, I don't have time to do all these interviews. I'm going back and forth between meetings with high-level leagues and all this kind of stuff. I don't have the time to be in these interviews. I go, can you start the process for me? And if you feel like I need to be a part of it, then bring me in. And so she's interviewing all these people, and this specific person in question, she goes, John, you need to speak with this man. He's unbelievable. Like, matter of fact, you're this guy in Michigan that everyone loves and respects when it comes to soccer. This is the same guy, but in Indiana. Like, this is a replica of you in Indiana. I was like, really? And so we had a chance to talk about it, and I talked with him, and I'm like, yeah, it was like an immediate like connection. And since he's come on board, he has really leveled up things for us. He is doing a lot of really great things behind the scenes that you probably won't necessarily even see it until you watch one of the games that he does. And I want to play something because this is the kind of stuff that he's doing for us, which on a network level, we were going to continue to start doing in all of our other games. But this is an audio that he did for the Oakland game coming that we just did this past Sunday. I'm going to play it up and then we'll introduce him into the show because why not? Because it's literally his introduction. So take a listen.
Welcome to NSN's presentation of the American Premier Soccer League. Today's matchup features Real Central New Jersey versus Oakland United FC of the Delaware River Conference. Kickoff is just moments away on the National Soccer Network.
So I'm going to welcome in John Natale now. John Natale is one of our newest play-by-play and becoming a very important part of what we're doing. And John, man, welcome to Inside the Game.
NSN.
Sorry.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the introduction. That was very humbling. And you're right, Jonathan, is that when I talked to Bianca and I saw the opportunity, read a little about it, knew about your background up there in Michigan. And also I know you're a Horizon League guy, so we kind of had that already, even we didn't know it. But ever since coming on board, Nate, it's just been unbelievable. You know, you see where it started, how much effort's put into it, and where it's going to go. And for me to say I don't want to be a part of that would have been the silliest decision I ever made. And here we are, and we're about 3 games into it, I believe, and things are only going to get better from this point.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, me and Bianca were just talking about this last night. You know, the thing that we're experiencing right now in our growth is there's a pain associated with all growing. And that's not to be like any pun intended, but it's the truth, right? There's pain in all growth, and some can be a really harsh pain and some can be a really small pain. And we're experiencing the small and the sharp and the hard all at the same time, right? Because we went from doing 1 or 2 games here locally, right, remotely, now to doing games all across the country, remotely. And there's these growing pains that we're experiencing. And one of those is being able to get these feeds, right? These feeds that are coming in from wherever they're coming from, and being able to use those feeds in a way that we can still tell a story, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what we do. We tell stories, and it might not be like I'm reading out of a book, but we're telling the story of the game as we see it. And if we do that right, people want to come back and listen and do it again, right? They want to, oh, this is great. We love you. We love what you're doing. And the VO cameras that we've been working with, and we have been not say a struggle, but these AI cameras have been a struggle for us. Because we're getting choppiness, we're getting, you know, it's blurry. There's latency issues. They completely drop off. I mean, Nathan, you know, you've experienced this. It's been a challenge, and I know that a lot of people are probably like, man, this is what the quality, right? The quality coming in isn't maybe what we're used to seeing from your network. I'm not going to have you answer that question. I can answer that question, but John, for you specifically, you're used to sitting in front of a game. Like, you know, at Indy 11, you know, at Horizon League games, right? At IU, well, now it's called IU Indy, right? But, you know, you're used to these environments where you're there. And now you're watching the game on a computer screen or a monitor in your home where you're sitting right now, and you're watching these games. It's hard sometimes to identify a player. How are you able to kind of deal with that under these new circumstances?
Well, first off, you know, being with Real Central New Jersey as kind of doing their whole schedule, it's that continuity that you build up. Jonathan, you're familiar with it, doing Oakland women's basketball. You know, you have your spotting board and you just see a player on the court. You don't even have to look who scored the basket or who made the assist or whatever, anything like that. But with the way that NSN is set up and you're doing different teams and different squads and different matches all the time, it can become a challenge because those VO cameras, those AI cameras are limited into how far they can go, zoom in and out. You really can't see that. So really you have to go deep into prepping as much as you can. The APSL and all the teams I've dealt with so far have been just absolutely fantastic. It's something that they're embracing outside of Real Central. I mean, Oakland, Philadelphia SC, Vitas United, all the teams that I've done so far have been quick to respond. They want to give information about their players, their clubs, their communities, everything like that. So that is tremendously helpful. and the fact just to talk to them. I've been on the phone with a couple of coaches, Ira Jersey, the head coach and lead person for Real Central. I've been on the phone with him a couple of times. We have an interview later today. And the more information that you can gather outside before game day is just invaluable.
Someone as a public address announcer, the one thing we do oftentimes as play-by-play announcer, it really translates for both. It's interesting. Sometimes it's not necessarily the number on the back. I think when you watch players play, and especially when you've had an opportunity to see them before, you see the way they move around. You see their physical characteristics, the way they carry themselves. And as someone who gets used to, doing certain leagues and certain teams, that can also help at the same time. We sometimes have spotters, and I think whenever I'm in a position to have one, that certainly makes me a lot better. Part of the preparation is actually knowing, who you look at. And I think when we talk about inside the game, prep is one of those big things that JT and I have talked, extensively about, because that's the hardest part. And if you get that part right, it feels like everything else kind of fills in where it needs to. What does your preparation look like? Is there anything involved in the way of maybe knowing how these guys move around, or watching film beforehand if you have access to any of those things as you're going into a game?
It really depends on what league you're doing. High school, it's tough to get video or audio or anything about what a team may do. But that's where you got to reach out to athletic directors and make that point to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to be on this network. We're going to be on that network. We're broadcast your game. We want to showcase you. That's always the word I like to use, showcase. I'm just there to call what's going on the screen. Everybody can see what's going on. I don't have to overdo it. With PA announcing, it's the same thing, is that I'm just relaying information to whatever sport, whatever crowd it is. But to get in with ADs, to get in with SIDs, communications people at college level, with doing the USL and the Indy 11. My vice president of marketing, Joe Gentry, he's just phenomenal on getting me rosters prior to games, making sure they have pronunciation guides on them. We have a script meeting, Kyle Heller and Morgan Kinley. We go over the script the day before to make sure that, okay, here's your reads, here's activations that's going to go on the field. Here's what we need to do. Here's your timing sheet. So all those things are so integral. And you think about just how long a soccer match is, maybe 2.5 hours, 3 if it goes in at a time. But that's 3 hours. You're probably putting in a good 5 to 10, depending on just how extensive the game is and how much info and whether it is play-by-play versus PA announcing of that prep time before. But it's going into the game where you feel confident. So if you do all that prep and you're ready to go and you have your notes, you're not scrambling. You're not, oh man, I'm kind of nervous. I'm kind of amped up, but it's all there. You're relaxed. And then as you go, you're just talking. You're not that broadcaster guy. You're not the PA guy. You're someone that you're sitting next to your friend at your favorite bar, restaurant, whatever, watching the game on the TV and just having that conversation with them. But it makes you accessible in the world of everybody else. Oh, you're a play-by-play broadcaster. Oh, you're a PA announcer. No, I'm a guy that's going to talk to you about the sport that you came to watch, that you paid money for, and to have a good time. So that all that encompasses together for that prep work to make sure that when you do it, you don't sound like that. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And when you ask people to sound like when they're on the radio, how their voice changes for some reason. Act like you're on the radio. Good evening, everybody. This is John Natali on 97.5.3 FM, and we're going to have some rockin' tune. They go into that thing. Just talk to people,
Right.
Wow, I like that a lot, actually. Can you do pillow talk for me from Alan Allman from back in the early 90s? I don't know if he was a national guy or not. I know locally here, this guy Alan Allman was like pillow talk. He would just talk so softly in the microphone, and good evening, everyone. But here's my question. I've done in the last 3 years probably 2,000 games. Obviously, a bulk of those high school and youth games, and obviously I've done a number of now Horizon League games at Oak University. We've had this conversation, and you just kind of talked about it a little bit, but that young broadcaster out there, who's watching this or maybe, interested in getting into this in this in some level, the ones that we're trying to find right now and bring in, what advice would you give them in regards to this specifically? Because we've had broadcasters come through our business and our company who are different on the microphone than they are in real life. And I've tried to express to them that if you act differently, it's a hard thing to keep going, right? I mean, most of your most successful broadcasters they talk the same way that they do in the microphone as they do in real life. And it makes it more natural. It's authentic, it's raw. I'm not saying that what they're doing is fake, but it's a dynamic that I think is hard to keep up with. And I'm curious your take on this too, because you just kind of alluded to it a little bit with don't be like you're on the radio, be kind of natural. What are your thoughts on that to the young broadcaster who thinks that they have to change their voice when they're on the microphone? And I'm not talking about your different levels, and I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about specifically like going from "Hi, how are you doing?" to "Hi, guys," like you just did, right? Or really kind of just amping up your voice and changing it to a different level just to do this job.
Right. I got to give a big shout out to Rich Hollenberg. He does Tampa Bay Rays work for their pregame show. He's a 4-time Emmy winner, and he has this breakthrough and break-in and breakthrough cohort. And I was a part of that. And I was kind of the anomaly because what it is the break-in part. It's a lot of young broadcasters who sign up for this thing. It's a group of about 12 or 13 people. And we discuss amongst each other and with the guidance of Rich to find how do you get into it? Well, with me, I was already into it. It was how do I now break through to get to that next level? And Rich was very complimentary of me of what I was doing and everything like that. But the thing that I took away, and it's the two words that just stick with me like crazy, is that be authentic and have authority. So it's accessibility and authority. And what that is your accessibility is what I've talked about before. Be yourself. A lot of young broadcasters, they're emulating a Kevin Harlan, an Ian Eagle, a Jim Nance, people like that. They want to be them. They're never going to be them. I'm never going to be them. Do we want to get to the levels that they do? Absolutely. But we're never going to be them. You have to create your own sense of style. And when you, like I'm dressed now, I'm wearing an Adidas a vest. Nate's wearing a t-shirt. Jonathan, you're wearing a hoodie. That's what you're doing. Yeah, USA. There you go. So that's you. You didn't change anything. That's who you are. And that's the thing, especially being on a media platform like this. So you want to have that where if you're listening to a game, like if you listened to the national championship last week, you want to go have dinner with Ian Eagle. That's all I can say. Like he's just I know he's a great guy, but he does his job so well. He communicates in a way that's entertaining, but it's informative and it's not over the top. And that's where they have to learn as a young broadcaster in order to do that. Become accessible. Let people hear you, but then want to meet you outside just to talk to you. And then the authority part is know your stuff. That's the bottom line. Know your stuff. Don't, he had a little shake and bake. No, he didn't. He put him in a spin cycle. He's going to he didn't he did. Make those points where this is what they did. Don't try to squirm around it. He's going to do a little bit. No, he's going to do all of it. So it's those kind of things, just taking authority, being the subject matter expert on whatever sport you're calling, and really show them that I've got this. I don't have to be John Gruden. I don't have to be Ron Jaworski and explain, Spider Y2 banana, anything like that. But know the play, know the players, do that prep work that Nate talked about, and just be so aware when they hear you and they see you talking that you're aware 100% of the subject that you're talking about, whether it's basketball, soccer, wrestling, lacrosse, field hockey, no matter what it is, that you're on top of it, but you're delivering it in a way that they can understand.
And I think that all circles back to relatability. You have to be able to speak the language of the fan. You have to be able to speak the language of someone that's watching. I think it's the whole reason why sometimes when you see former athletes get into broadcasting, they struggle because they're trying to figure out how to speak the language of the fan, right? Not the language that they're used to hearing in the film room, because that sounds like French or German to people who aren't used to that kind of terminology. You have to make it relatable. You have to make it fit. And so I 100% agree. And I think there's different layers to relatability. I think the personality side of it is something that's developed as you go, and I think, most broadcasters will find that gets easier as you go because you learn more about yourself. I was the same way when I was younger, growing up. I'll always reference, the likes of Pat Hughes. I think Doc Emmerich is on the Mount Rushmore in terms of broadcasters. I don't know if you're much of a hockey guy, but, he was one that, in terms of, his relatability, was outstanding. But the other thing that I think that he checked off and the other ones check off is energy. Energy is something that is so valuable for our job, because if you match the energy of the people that are watching, if you match the energy of the people that are consuming, if you prove to them that you care just as much as they do, and that's getting away from, again, the hackiness of it all and just trying to sound a certain way, and everything that you do is authentic, people are going to be able to relate to you a lot better. And that's the part that I think sometimes broadcasters leave on the table, because it just sounds like through them trying to be a certain way, trying to fit in this box, that maybe they're not as relatable as what they try to be. Energy is one of those things that can tend to be a little bit harder, especially when you talk about the world that you and I live in, John, because, I did the two sports that I do during the summer. I'm getting into the season now, baseball and soccer. As you know, both sports can get into certain times where there are lulls and there's downtime, and, silence is not a bad thing. They always say silence is gold, right? Because if they can hear the crowd, if they can see what's going on, again, it's almost like they're just kind of sitting there. You don't have to overdo it. But how do you really execute on that aspect of it, keeping the energy high throughout the course of a game and really hitting on that point? I think preparation is really important. And I know for me, obviously, in doing so many games, you just kind of get used to it, that it's easier to keep that energy up. How do you execute on that component?
I'm going to go back to what Jonathan said, and especially with soccer, because the game allows you to do it, is you tell stories. If you were to do a soccer match and you did every touch, someone would flip you off in 2 minutes and go to whatever next show or other sport that they wanted to watch. It wouldn't happen. So you build those stories, and the pace of both soccer and baseball is so perfect to do that. And I think in my world, and Nate, this may go for you too, I find myself here in Indiana, the guy that wants to do soccer and who wants to do baseball. I feel that a lot of other of my colleagues and peers and everything like that do soccer and baseball because they were asked. And there's a big difference for that. And when you're interested, when you love the sport, when you follow it, when you're doing it, when you're not doing a game and you're even watching that game that maybe you didn't get or whatnot, that adds a huge element to it. And it's also where you are when you're doing that prep work. Just with Jonathan putting me on for Real Central New Jersey, I was born in Jersey, so I know it, but I'm digging down into Mercer County. I'm finding out what the popular restaurants, where the kids go to eat, and where everybody hangs out, and find those references that people identify with. Goes back to what you said. Make it relatable, make it identifiable. And with baseball, you got to wait a little bit. Thank God for the pitch clock. I love it. I love the pitch clock. Let's right. Go. But you have those moments where you can throw something in. And baseball, there's so many stats and so much history and so much stuff you can dig up that through 9 innings, you can fill it if you're good with it. I've noticed a lot with young broadcasters is that, and I'm sure I think we all did this when we first started. We fill up our boards and we have thousands and thousands of notes. And we want to get through every single one for that match, game, whatever you want to call it. And by the time the second quarter rolls around, you're like, uh-oh. But you're putting it in wrong spots. You're trying to say something about back in 1953 when the program started, there's a fast break and a dunk, and you missed that call. You missed a great opportunity for your reel. So you don't have to use everything. It's
Right.
just how you time it out, what fits. And both soccer and baseball, and Nate, I know you do this, is that you're able to find it's read the room, basically.
Mhm.
Right place, right time with the notes you have. If you don't get to everything, that's fine, because no one's going to call you out on it.
Right.
You can bring that to the next game, you can bring it to the next match, and that's what you do. You're building that team, or just as you said, your personality, who you are down the line. Prime example of energy, Gus Johnson, probably one of the most exuberant broadcasters out there. I had a chance to look at one of his spotting boards. I honestly think he's been using the same one for 2 years, and he just kind of checks off what he said and what he didn't, but he didn't change any of the verbiage because it works. It worked in the same thing for 2015, and it would work in 2025. It's history of the school that he can bring at any time. If there's a moment where he can bring that out, he does. And that's why he's so good. So that not trying to put everything down in a broadcast, and again, going that word relatable, it just rings in your head, is just so crucial, because you have to pace it out in order to keep that excitement for 2 very long, not too interesting all the time games, which is soccer and baseball.
It's a great point, and we talk about it a lot. Relatability, understanding the game, right? The biggest thing I tell our young broadcasters is I say this phrase, I go uncork. And the reason why I say uncork is that, during most of a soccer game, there's not a lot of things that are happening that would require high energy, right? I guess as you alluded to, right, there's a bunch of passes that happen, and you're not, pass 9, pass 10, long pass. You're not going to be doing that, right? You're going to be telling the story. You may be talking about a player, the town, talking with your color commentator, whatever. But then inside of 25 yards from goal, where things can start to get really chaotic and crazy for 8-second period, and then back to the flow. I go, when that happens, I go, we have to, as broadcasters, specifically in soccer, is we have to go high level energy, as I say, uncork, when a shot is taken, a save is made, right? We have to get extremely excited. And I'm not saying crazy, I'm just saying that we have to raise the level of excitement so it can highlight that moment, because the one thing we don't know is if it's going to go in, it's going to go wide, right? We don't know that when the shot's taken, especially from where we're sitting now. We're watching these games on TV screens, so I'm not even there. So we have to, when that shot is taken, we have to uncork. We have to go to from whatever we were to a much higher level, or level, and find a way to be able to express that moment in a way that the person at home who's watching can go, "Oh crap, something just happened," and get really excited about it as well. I know you probably, both of you, agree with me on that, but how does the young broadcaster learn that? Because I'm finding it hard for them to really, especially in our rooms here, to get loud and energetic after the shot is being taken. How we break that for these young broadcasters?
Go ahead, Nate.
How do we break that? Interesting. Well, let me tell you this. My first couple of years in this industry, there was, I remember, we had a home run during baseball. And I think it was my first year doing minor league ball. And I had checked all the boxes. I had gotten better at, getting the basics down, seeing the game, understanding the verbiage, everything in terms of seeing the game and understanding the game and the flow of the game. It was all getting a lot better, right? I was checking all those boxes. But I remember there was one home run in particular. The guy who was sitting next to me, Dan Hasty, who's the number 1 in West Michigan, he had done some spring training and some other things at the major league level, but he had been around, and he's pretty much been kind of my go-to in terms of developing over the years. He's like, you gotta give something a little more juice. It just that I gotten to a point to where he was just like, listen, he goes, you make okay calls, it's fine, but you sound a little AI. He goes, I need you to give it a little bit more. And so I think we had a home run, and it kind of upset me a little bit because, you know, I thought I was doing a really good job, and I didn't realize that people thought I was, quote, boring, that I wasn't really giving much to these big calls. And there was a home run, I think, literally 2 pitches later. And just out of spite, I'm just like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to crank this one up to 10 and let's just see how it goes. And I did. And immediately afterwards, Dan gets like 4 or 5 texts like, who are you calling the game with tonight? Like, who is that? It's like, that's Nate. It's like, wow, okay. I haven't heard that much excitement out of him since he started working here. And it's true. It's 100% true. And again, it goes back to what I was just asking John a moment ago. I finally matched that enthusiasm, that energy level of everybody else in the building. You know, I wasn't trying to sound perfect or not crack at the top. And so I think I think it's fear, number one. I also think the other thing too is, JT, this comes with time. It's comfort level with your voice. You know, the comparison I like to make, and we always talk, it's like a gear shifter, right? You go 1 through 5. 5 is a championship call, right? Like, you only really want to go to 5, 6 once in a while, because that's like a grand slam to win a game. That's like a walk-off in a playoff game. That's a championship level call. But going up to 4 is what I find sometimes the hardest thing for young broadcasters, and it's because they're not comfortable with their voice itself. You know, they're not comfortable with maybe going to that level because they don't know if they can sustain it. They don't know if they have enough wind in order to not break at the top of their calls. And a lot of them, with being young, just don't have that vocal development yet. I mean, it's no different in my mind than playing an instrument. You know what I mean? Like, you have to learn the basics. You have to learn the notes. But even when you learn the notes, you can't really put a whole lot of jazz or a whole lot of flair into it because you're not quite sure how far you can go. Like, what has helped me over the last few years, and even I think soccer has helped me out a ton, because in this sport in particular, you're allowed to uncork it a little bit more, right? Because we understand that one goal might be the game. You know, one goal is kind of like scoring 3 or 4 runs in baseball. Yeah, I mean, the game's not over. There's a chance the other team could come back, but that's your real opportunity right there. That might be the game. So it's learning how to support, you know, your voice and understanding how far you can go with it and to what level you can go to where it still sounds good. Sorry. And you still get that resonance behind it. And that's the hardest thing in my mind for young broadcasters, because they don't know how far they can go. So my advice in this situation, and it was something I had to do, was practice, you know, in your car, into a phone, you know, pretend like you're calling something. How far can you go in terms of up, but also in terms of out? How much wind can you get it before you crack? Because it's okay if you're maybe not as high as some guys, you know, as high pitched. You know, I think of Joe Buck. He's never going to get as high as a lot of other broadcasters are, but he goes as high as he can, and he really gives a lot of air behind it, and the resonance is good. And so that's what makes, especially later in his career, that's what makes a lot of these calls exciting. But that's a fear point for young broadcasters. So you actually have to go out of your way, much like an instrument, much like anything else, play with it, right? See how far you can go, right? And then the last part of that is obviously timing. You know, you want to build your call to the climax. You know, the top of my home run call, I want that to be when the ball hits the stands. You know, the top of my goal call, I want it to be when the ball hits the back of the net. That's why I love like penalty kicks, because it allows you to actually, you know, wind up and punch the thing, really. You know, you could throw a haymaker on a situation like that. So it's comfort level with your own voice. How far can you go before you finally crack or the audio gets distorted? That's the toughest part in my mind. And sometimes that takes time, but constantly reminding them to work on that, I think, is a good first step.
Agree with that 100%. And I'll piggyback off it. What I think is that at the end of the day, and Jonathan, you know, as you're looking and having a hard time with these young broadcasters when they're in the attacking third, or there's a great save on the other third of the pitch, that when it comes down to the end of it, reps in our business is the most important thing that we can get. The more that we do, I mean, it is everything. And that's why I do the PA gig, because if I'm not doing enough play-by-play, I have to keep my chops, like you said. I have to keep them warm. I have to keep them ready. I have to keep them going, so that next opportunity, I'm on top of it. But when it comes, you can have as many reps as you want. But when that job opens up, say at Western Michigan, and you apply for it, they're not looking at you, oh, he's done 2,000 games. He's looking at a 5-minute demo reel of your best calls. And your best calls are going to come from inside that box or the attacking third at some point in soccer. So if you don't have that, that person that does is going to get that job that you're trying to get. So as you try to advance yourself, that's what you have to remember. This isn't, I'm scared, I'm young, I don't know how to do it yet. This is, how am I going to get a job? Because right now I'm freelance. I'm making, I've seen people do it for free. Like you said, practice, take it. If you get a rep, take it. Don't say no. That's another thing that Rich Hollenberg expressed in his cohort was, don't say no unless you have something else that you've committed to. But when you put that demo reel together, it's not 5 minutes of in the middle talking about Mercer County College in New Jersey. No, it's not. It's Sean Bowen making a great save to his right. Ilya Shakashvili with a beautiful strike in the left side, and then it puts Real Central up 1-0. That's your demo reel. And that's what's going to carry you. And that's when you're making sure, and this is why being with NSN is so great, is if I have a great call, I can go back, I can cut it, I have that, put it in a folder, and then when I make my new demo reel, or I feel that the call I made was better than the one I had on my demo reel, I can clip that and put it in. So for the young broadcaster, if you want that job, you have to, it's just like any job. Go in thinking that you're going to get it. So how are you going to get it? You're going to have that authority. You're going to have that accessibility. And that's where those strikes come in that third, as Jonathan mentioned, on either side, whether it's a great save or a great strike, or even if it's, just over the crossbar, those moments, everything that you can calculate inside that attack area to build that demo reel, because that is what's going to get you a job. The paper, the resume is not going to do it. It's your tone, as you mentioned. It's how you call it, how exciting it was, and how you brought the audience into the game itself if they were watching at home.
No, that's actually, again, guys, that's really great stuff. The comment came in actually via text, because someone's obviously was not actually watching, or they're watching, but they're on via text. I got the comment. It says here, as someone who doesn't do this as a profession, but listen to y'all amazing talent, which is obviously they're from the South, which is great, by the way. How do you keep your commentary unbiased when you are clearly watching a team getting their asses kicked? Quote, end quote. So,
yeah, John, you can go ahead if you want.
So, no, this is actually great. I'm not going to mention the team. It's a game that I did earlier this year. It was basketball, and they lost by 78, and they scored 12 points. They did not score in the first half, and it was rough. And I actually I was the home biased announcer for this team, and that's where that prep work comes in, where you have to look back at, so how successful was this team when it first started? What is their resume before this season? This is one season. This is a horrible season. We all know that. But back in the 60s, when they made a 3-year run going to the state finals, or they have this many sectional championships, and what's going on in the community, how they're looking forward, what do their youth programs look like, what do their middle school programs look like, or is there anybody on the freshman team that's coming up that's really going to help this team? And it's a young team, keep just doing all those positive things. It's like, yeah, exactly. Respect it. You can 100% call what's going on the floor. You say, that's a rough half. That's no point scored in 16 minutes of basketball. But what adjustments will coach so-and-so make? They're more than likely not going to win this game, but they can't get 70 points in one basket. How do you trim it? How do you get from 70 to 50? What are some things that we can say? Is there anything in the film when you do a post-game show that you can take from this? Oh, you had that backdoor cut, which worked 2 times. You missed the basket, but it worked twice.
Right.
That's something that coach can take away from that. So yes, it is very difficult, But that goes back to that prep work, and prep work is everything. What can you build? Look at the success or what they've done the games too. We all know it. You can be the best team in the world, but the only team really to do it undefeated was Indiana, Bobby Knight's team, the Dolphins, the 72 Dolphins, to go undefeated. Mm-hmm. That's really the two prime examples that I can use. Everybody loses. There's times where the ball's not going to go in the back of the net. A keeper is going to just shut you down. He's going to have the best game. He might be the backup and comes in and has a game of his life. And in basketball, you're cold sometimes. I'm a Cavs fan. They're 62-16. And people complain more about the 16 than they do the 62. I don't get it. But they're in first place. They win one more game, they win the East. And that's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Look at another Cleveland, Golden State, 73-9, best record of all time in the NBA. But they lost 9 times. And then they were up 3-1 in the championship. And what happened? Cleveland came back, one of the greatest NBA finals in NBA history. And as a fan, you don't know how happy that made me. So that is a big thing. There's always history, and there's something about that team that you can talk about regardless of what's going on the pitch. If they get a 7-0 shutout one day, okay, it happens. But guess what? You won 5-1 last week. You had a bad day. This team was on. You were off. So if you can calculate all that stuff in your head to say, this is going to be rough, but here's what I have to say that's positive. All your notes are positive. There's nothing negative on there. You're not like, oh, well, this levy failed and this isn't getting built and all that kind of stuff. No, no reason to talk about that. Everything that you have is at least neutral or positive to add to that, blowout, getting your A kicked, as Jonathan mentioned through the text.
Right. Put things into perspective. The other thing I'll say, and I got this advice early, don't get caught up in the minutia of games. Don't get caught up in the minutia. Don't get caught up in the emotion. The thing is, a team can lose 75-15. A team can lose in a baseball game 15-1. And the broadcasters can still have a good night. That's how, and it's funny because when people talk to me, they're like, "Did you guys win or lose tonight?" I'm like, "Oh, we lost." They're like, "Oh, sorry, that's terrible." I'm like, "Yeah, but the broadcast was good because we put things into perspective. We told good stories. We, really kind of built this thing. And the biggest part of our job is what separates us from fans is exactly that. How do we put things into perspective with our prep work? How do we look forward? How do we get people to understand, okay, what brought us to this point? Why are we in this situation right now? It's adding context to a sport that, in other words, might not have it. And I'm not saying that that's easy. It's not an easy thing to do, but what brought us to this point? What can we do moving forward? Letting people know, what exactly it is that we're seeing and what kind of an impact that it has. I mean, that's the important thing. Now, are you allowed to show a little bias here or there? Yes, absolutely. Like, listen, if a team or a club is paying you, if they're the ones that sign off on your paycheck, I don't think that there's anything necessarily inherently wrong with showing that you're a little bit disappointed. Again, relatability. I'm sure there are other people that are watching this right now that are like, yeah, this is kind of sad to see. No one likes to see this. But it's all about how far you take that. I've seen broadcasters get up and leave games early because their team's getting dominated. That's beyond unprofessional. You know what I mean? Like you have a job to do. You can't just get up and leave early. So the ones that sometimes I find get caught up in the minutia of everything that's going on and the emotion are oftentimes sometimes the ones that stay stuck. Now if that's all you want to do is just this one team or this one area or this one community for the rest of your life, then that's okay. I mean, if that's your end goal, but the ones that are really good, the ones that are at the highest levels can, when you get into those situations, can go, okay, so this is the situation. This is what's in front of us. Let's talk about what led us to this point. Good, bad, or indifferent. Let's just have a conversation about what we believe led us here and what's going to happen moving forward because of all the preparation we have on the players, on the teams, on the history of the two teams, All of that stuff is good. You have to put it into perspective, because if you get caught up in the emotion of all of it, that's not really teaching anybody or showing anybody anything, So I think it's always important to at least kind of be in the middle as much as you can. But the other hard part is that you're never going to satisfy everybody. That's the hardest thing is there's always going to be a handful of people that are like, oh, you should have called this a different way. Or, the other hard thing, John, and I'm sure you've run into this, if it's relevant to the story, it's relevant to the story. And I'm not trying to bury anybody, but for example, on our baseball team, we had someone go, I think, one for their last 30 at a certain stretch last year. And he came up in a big situation, and that's relevant information. I'm not trying to bury you, but I think the hard thing for broadcasters is, well, we have to keep everything positive. Yes, but positivity and negativity comes from tone of voice. That is the biggest thing, right? It's not that you said this. I can say, hey, he went 1 for 30. The Tigers are trying to fix a few things about his swing. Something's not right. He's just not recognizing these certain pitches in these certain areas. So we're trying to get, I think his name was Jose, but we're trying to get Jose back to this point to where he's recognizing these in certain situations. That's what I've heard from scouts. That's a lot different than going, yeah, he's 1 for 30. He just doesn't have it this year. I don't know if he's cut out for this level. Who knows, what's going to happen after this year. This is probably going to be an out. Those are two very different things. So I think tone and delivery, because it is what you say, but we know this. John, you know this too. 95% of it is how you say it. That's what it comes down to, is maintaining that middle ground is how you say things. And that's how I try to attack it, at least in my job, especially where I might be the only source people are consuming this on. I guess it's a different story if you're at the higher levels and you have, radio here, radio there, TV, little bit different, but it's tone, it's delivery, and it's perspective. And it's the biggest thing is not getting caught up in the emotions of the games. Okay. That's something that I think can really get us off track.
If you don't mind, John, I'd like to say something about that. Is an experience that I had this past Friday with Jonathan. I shared with you is that I got my first NBA game as a PA announcer, and I did the Indiana Pacers versus the Utah Jazz on Friday night. And just as I mentioned, I'm a diehard Cleveland fan. Cavs are my favorite team. I'm a big Guardians fan. I hate saying this, but yes, I'm a Browns fan too. But to be able to go into Gainbridge Fieldhouse as a guy from Cleveland, to go into Hoosier basketball country, is what that's actually an opening. Welcome to basketball country. And to do the PA announcing for 18,000 rabid fans cheering for a playoff team. And you have Tyrese Halliburton here. You have Colin Sexton over here. Will Hardy's right here. Rick Carlisle's right here. But when tip-off goes, both of you, Nate, John, it's something clicks. It's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's you. Everything goes away. Mm-hmm. It's like, these are 5 guys on this side. This is 5 guys on this side. They're playing basketball. It's 90 feet. The rims are 10 foot high. This is what I got to do. Nobody came here to listen to me. Nobody, none of these 18. Well, I shouldn't say that because my fiance came with her parents. So so there was at least, there was 4, right? But they're not there for you. Yep. So you get back to whether it's a 6th grade basketball tournament for AAU, or it's high school, or it's college, or it's the NBA. I look at it as like, oh my gosh, I just did the highest level of professional basketball in the world. And I did it in a city I'm not from, because I love the game. It's exciting for me. You feed off of it. You guys have both done this, what we're doing on NSN, how we're remote and everything. But when you are live, you feed off the crowd. And I think that is one of the challenges that Jonathan brought up, is how do you do that on a broadcast that's away from you? That's, I think, the hardest thing. And for me, it's hard. Nate, I'm sure for you, it's hard. John, I know it's hard for you at times, but to bring that energy, but to remember that, yes, you have to entertain on play-by-play and everything else. But remember, let the game speak for itself. Yeah. Because if you miss something, If you don't know what to say, you don't have to say it. So all that stuff ties into what you said. Don't get caught up in the emotion of the game. The game will take care of itself. Your tone, your personality, everything else is going to build your brand on the broadcast. The teams will show you how good or bad they are. You're telling them what they're doing. Sell yourself on the other stuff, how you saw prep work and everything like that. So very, very valid point, Nate. Very, very.
So here's a comment coming in from the coffee firm. Good question about biases. Detroit City FC has a crew that is paid for by the team, which is a lot of factors. The color guy even said he's pulling for the home team because that's where his bread is buttered. Do announcers have to be impartial? I kind of want to start with this one first, and then you pass it off to you guys. I think yes and no. Right? I think it can go both ways. I think that if you're being paid for by a team, and you're in a local market, right? Like Detroit Tigers, for example, on a local market. Now, they're not on ESPN. They're on local TV, right? Or the local FanDuel app, whatever that even looks like. I don't know. But I do believe that you can, in that environment, be as a homer as you want to, because on the other side of that is another team that's calling their home team in baseball, right? They have two broadcasts happening at the same time, both in radio and in television. So in that scenario, I think you can totally be a homer. Right? It's your broadcast, so why not? In regards to soccer, I do know right now USL Championship specifically, is you have some you're involved in this on some level, John Natali, is that there are right now, again, two types of broadcasts in USL Championship, and for a lot of teams, you've got your local market, which for here in Michigan, Detroit City FC is on like CBS. Some local CBS channels, and then of course they're on ESPN Plus, or if they're on CBS Golazo, right? There's places that can be nationally. So those broadcasts are treated separately. A lot of times they'll actually bring in a different commentator to call that neutral broadcast that's more national, and they use the local broadcaster to cover the local broadcast, which allows them to be that home-based local, thing. So, but again, if you're on that national level, so if you're, Neil Rule, who is part of our broadcasting, who does call games for Detroit City FC and for the USL Championship, Neil does do games for for Vista down in Florida, and calls games that are more neutral, right? But he will tell you he'll call games for Detroit City FC as he sees them, and he is in fact a homer. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're on a national broadcast, you're going to have to find a way to be as neutral as you can. And when I'm at Oakland doing broadcasts for them on ESPN Plus, the Horizon wants us to be neutral. They do. They want us to be neutral. So you come prepared to be both, right? To have information about both teams, to have information to keep you as neutral as possible, and allow the game to kind of dictate what way you'll go. But I think it's a great question. But I also think there's some maybe like there are different things you can put in there, like, hey, well, is it a local broadcast? Is it a national broadcast? That kind of a thing. But I do think that you have to be as impartial as you can when it dictates.
Yeah, yeah, very quickly. Yeah, I'll throw mine in. It's all about it's all about feel, and it's all about towing that line and understanding, how far you can go with it. The best example I can think of, and I even complimented him after the fact, because I went down to Michigan State to shadow their women's basketball radio broadcaster, Dalton Shetler. I have a lot of mutual connections. We've been able to chat a lot ever since, and trying to develop my basketball game more and more. So went down there to listen to him and got to sit in on the broadcast. He had like this headset I could put on to listen to everything he was doing. And they were playing Oregon that day. And I remember Oregon wasn't on their level. They were kind of middle of the pack. Michigan State had a great start to the year. And this was a game where, to your point, he was a radio broadcaster. So he's paid for by Michigan State, right? So it's a little bit different than if he was a TV guy and he's right down the middle. So he's paid for by them. But they're playing this game, and they're turning the ball over, and they're not really getting big rebounds, and they're just making silly mistakes. And I remember at one point in the game, there was a bad turnover, and you can hear him go, "Oh, goodness gracious!" And then he continues, calling the game. That little thing right there is enough for me to hear and go, "Okay, he's upset. he's frustrated with how this game is progressing for MSU right now because they're doing things that are uncharacteristically bad. But he's not quite. And John, I don't know if you know who this is, either of the two Johns. Hawk Harrelson, who used to be the longtime voice of the White Sox.
Yes.
So that guy was like the extreme other side, but
Yes.
he was a legend playing in that town. And so everything that he's done was all around the White Sox, and he's a Hall of Fame, and this, that, and the other thing. So that's a little bit of a different story. So I would never take it quite to that extent. But can you do it in a tasteful manner? That's the thing for me. You know, can you express it in a way where people are like, oh, he sounds frustrated, but he's also not going out of his way to be so hard-lined one way to where it's a tough listen. Because I even told Dalton after that game, I go, even if I'm an Oregon fan, even if, say, hypothetically, I have no other choice, I have to listen to you, your slight difference in tone between when they score a basket and we score a basket, or when we turn the ball over, we don't get a rebound, how tasteful it is and how you're not quite going to the extreme makes a difference in the world. Are you allowed to be a little biased? Yes. They signed my paychecks, guys. You know what I mean? I'm not getting paid by that other team, so I'm allowed to have a little bit of that. But is it tasteful? Again, tone and delivery matters. That's everything in our business.
I want to real quick on the guy who Indy 11. His name is Greg Rakestraw, and he has here in Indiana for me has really got me to where I am. Really, I mean, he's a mentor, he's a great friend, but he's fantastic what he does. He's the play-by-play broadcaster for the 11. He's been there all 12 years. So he was there when they broke ground in 2013. He's still doing it today, and he's got two new people with him. He's got former Indy 11 legend Brad King with him, Dan Capsalis, who is a coaching legend here in Indiana. But Greg, with that hometown, he's just one of those guys that has it. You know, that when you go around the block and you're thinking about guys who just know how to do it, that they could do it with their eyes closed, or they could do it with, you know, if they got called 5 minutes before to get down to the stadium to call a soccer match or a baseball game or a basketball. Greg is so embedded as a lifetime Hoosier that he just knows. If something comes up, he's got that knowledge, and he does such a wonderful job with the Indy 11. But the thing I really respect about Greg is what he'll do for Colorado Springs, what he'll do for Pittsburgh. He respects the fact that they traveled how many miles to come here. They got to play the same 90 minutes. They're making all these efforts too, the sacrifices, the training during the week or whatever.
They have friends and family.
Exactly. Yeah. They're bringing in people. They're watching, and from all across the country. So he is so good at that. And I've heard Jonathan do a broadcast, and I know he does that. He respects the opponent. He doesn't have to root for him, but if it's a great goal, it's a great goal, no matter how you look at it. You cannot take that away from that strike from 28 yards out on a free kick from somebody else because you saw it. And your excitement was like, oh my gosh, what a strike in the upper 90 from 28 yards out. It's something for that player. It's something for that team. But as you go back to the tone, when a Jack Blake scores, or, you know, there's a Aiden Stanley or Aiden Quinn, whenever those guys, the top guys score, Greg makes you like, you kind of do that thing with your back where you hear it. And unfortunately, I'm in the PA booth, so I can't watch the game. But I know prior to, when I go back and I try to listen for things I did and whatnot, I hear Greg, and he kind of pulls me away from what I'm doing, what I'm trying to listen for, because he's so interactive with that crowd to make it, yes, I'm getting paid by the Indy 11. This is my team. This is the hometown team. This is the highest level professional soccer in Indiana. Let's make it happen. And Greg does a beautiful job of doing that.
It is a great comment here, a great conversation this morning here on Inside the Game. It is officially over. We are 4 minutes and 15 seconds over our allotted time. That's when you're having great conversations. We're going to have you back here on the show for sure, John. We appreciate you stopping by and being a part of this conversation. Yeah, we didn't get some of the things we want to talk about in today outside of this conversation. So we'll talk more things inside the game and soccer, and some things we want to talk about here on future episodes. Tomorrow is episode number 60. So come back and enjoy us as we get another nice rounded number. As the 60 episodes here of Inside the Game will get underway. John, thank you for stopping by again, and we're looking forward to continuing to hear you not only on this show but also on all of our other broadcasts on the network. And again, come back tomorrow morning. Watch us on the show at 9 a.m. here on the National Soccer Network, Inside the Game. And again, same time, same place. On YouTube, Roku, Twitter, and Facebook. That's Nathan Wangler. I'm Jonathan Turner. We'll be back here tomorrow morning, same time, same place. This has been a presentation of the National Soccer Network.